You don't have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines sort of be like, I'm only in it for the kids. I'm not playing the game. You're playing the game. You're just losing. You've probably been in a situation for a long time where those are not necessarily characteristics you've fully developed and owned right now because you've just been trying to survive for a long time. And you finally got the strength to leave. And you're at the end of your rope.
Conflict equals retaliation and vengeance and grudge holding.
Big mistake I see women make is they're annoying, definitely not a good co-parent, definitely a jerk, definitely an a-hole, calling him a narcissist, and then walking into their divorce lawyer's office with that word. What you're gonna get, whether you know this is happening to you or not, is a big fat eye roll. I'm rolling my eyes as big as I can if you're listening. From that law firm, more than likely. Because it's a buzzword, because people use it too much. They use it to mean things it doesn't actually mean.
Every narcissistic abuse victim walks into court hoping for justice, but what if that's not the court's purpose? To discuss this in depth, Hannah Hembree Bell joins me to discuss what is actually going to happen in court and how you can be your best advocate. She is a family law attorney and host of a new podcast called Not Saving It for Later. Well, Hannah Hembree Bell, I'm so excited to have you on today. Why don't you tell people a little bit about who are you and what are you doing? I know you just said you have a podcast launching as of today, I think you said, right?
Yeah, this week.
Oh, that's so cool. How exciting. So tell us who you are and how you got interested in this whole realm of narcissistic abuse, but also trauma, abuse to women.
Yeah, so I am a divorce lawyer based in Austin, Texas. I lead a firm here of inching up on like 50 people where we help marriages end well. And we're like not kumbaya lawyers. My own experience helps inform that for sure. But we try to help people end as well as they can and get on with the next chapter of their life. I also founded an online community, the My Confident Life Circle, where we help support women going through divorce and beyond. So I am in the business of helping people in divorce use it as a way to choose whether they're going to be bitter or better. And I pretty much assume that everybody I'm talking to, if they're listening to me for more than 25 seconds, wants to be better. And so that's the focus of everything I'm doing. At the law firm, we work with men and women. Really, it's about half and half. With the circle, it's women only. And with the podcast, it's geared towards helping support women through divorce. So kind of both sides. And what got me interested in this universe is partially my own experience. I am divorced and have been through 2 custody modifications. One is still ongoing. And that experience has informed the entire way I practice. It's why I started a law firm. I wanted to go back and help women and be the sort of lawyer I wished I would have had at the time. And then through my experience as a lawyer and working with different people over the years, now at this point, thousands of people through the firm, I have started to see some patterns, some mistakes, and I'm so big on just the practical and going back and trying to stop women from making the mistakes that I personally made or that I see clients make that could cost them their kids, their money, or their sanity, and trying to cut it off at the pass so that doesn't happen.
Well, what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing that are happening?
I think people really can get caught up in the blame game, the TikTok world of narcissism stuff, okay? And it really, really can be harmful, in my opinion. And this is, everybody take this with a grain of salt, because I want to just put out there, I believe you. What you're experiencing, I understand. I can empathize with in some situations. So don't take anything I'm saying to minimize your experience. And I am focused on how that's going to impact your life and your custody and your money. Now, what happens, I think, sometimes is, and look, it's awesome. We have this online world where we can connect with people across the globe on issues that before we thought we were a universe of one and no one ever felt like that. You don't have to feel that way anymore. You can just go on Reddit, okay? Now, what happens is you can get in an echo chamber and people start talking about narcissism. And I say like with a little n versus a big N, right? And Dr. Kerry, I know that you know what I mean, because there's big N narcissism, sort of that disrupts one's daily life and more psychological condition sort of stuff. And personality disorders. And then there's little n narcissism that just means a really self-absorbed kind of punk, jerk, a-hole. Okay. So I call it a run-of-the-mill a-hole and a big, then you might have a narcissist. And I think what happens is the big mistake I see women make is they're annoying, definitely not a good co-parent, definitely a jerk, definitely an a-hole, calling him a narcissist, and then walking into their divorce lawyer's office with that word. And then what you're going to get, whether you know this is happening to you or not, is a big fat eye roll. I'm rolling my eyes as big as I can if you're listening, from that law firm, more than likely, because it's a buzzword, because people use it too much. They use it to mean things it doesn't actually mean. And then often what happens is somebody starts picking apart your case and starts seeing some of the things you're doing. And a lot of the times the person accusing the other one of being a narcissist is actually doing some of the abusive behaviors. So you just want to proceed with some caution and some self-awareness and some willingness to take a look at your own side of the table. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of caught up in the internet universe and the memes and whatever, and it makes me feel better to have someone to blame and to make the villain. But remember, when you give them the villain, you're taking on the victim. And whatever's happened to you, my hope would be that you don't stay in a victim mindset. So I guess it's like that. It's like claiming that for yourself and then using it in a way that's detrimental to your future case and your kids and your well-being, whatever they're called, whatever you call this jerk. To me, it's about how we manage it and deal with it in your case and in your life, no matter what they might be called, because I think a lot of times using that word can backfire on you.
What do you think people are wanting to convey when they say the word narcissist? Because it sounds like they're trying to communicate something, but I'm hearing that it's not working. That's what you're saying. We don't hear it in the way that you want us to hear it.
This is my own experience, but generally speaking, there is a bias right now that I see, that I've observed, this is anecdotal, in lawyers that I know, with an eye roll of, oh, I bet he's a narcissist. And they immediately discredit you. And they immediately don't believe you unless you've got some really good stuff. And it's hard because it's hard to disprove a negative or whatever, right? Or prove a negative. So what'll happen is people bring in some evidence, like little bits and pieces. And I'm holding up a piece of paper, like a text or something, email. And they're showing you these things that happened. And they're not showing you all their responses or something. And then later we see more and like, this isn't quite what you said. It's like they're overplaying their hand a lot of times. And as we dig, we see, look, sis, I'm not saying those were great. Your side of the plate isn't clean either. And it can color the way they consider your entire case. Like I made a whole video on the internet that's like, be careful lest you ever walk into that lawyer office and say, you're divorcing a narcissist, because I think generally speaking, your case will not go great. Let that lawyer decide for themselves. Give them the evidence, give them the text, don't say the word so you don't get that label. Let them decide, let them make that conclusion. And then you don't have this resistance to overcome. And like, if y'all can, everybody give the lawyer a little bit of credit or like grace in this, here's why. Because our brain, and this is, I'm not meaning to go in your territory, Dr. Kerry, you correct me if I'm wrong, but develops heuristics, these mental shortcuts of how we process information to go about our daily life, right? Like, oh, I see that thing that's yellow and it's kind of shaped in a smiley face way and it's on a kitchen counter. That must be a banana, right? And so it gets these bits and pieces of information. Now, our brain does that in complicated ways all the time. And in the divorce world, what happens is, and I didn't know this till I was doing it for a minute, your brain creates these heuristics, these mental shortcuts. Really, they're like tropes. If y'all have heard of tropes, like in literature or in music, it creates these tropes. Oh, that's the woman divorcing the narcissist, and I'm using quotes. Oh, that's the new mom who thinks only she should have her kids. Oh, that's the dad who only says he wants custody of the kids because he doesn't want to pay child support. And their brain is trying to make sense of information when too much is coming at them every day. So they're not like trying to be a jerk to you, but you're going to trigger their brains, the things that's a skill, but you're going to trigger that in them. So I would tell you, if you think from listening to Dr. Kerry's podcast and you've got all this information, it's the same advice you're going to give the court. You're not going to go into court and claim narcissism more than likely. Let the thing speak for itself. That legal term we have, res ipsa. I like, it's Latin, so forgive me if that's the wrong way to say it. But like the thing speaks for itself. So what you do is you give the evidence, you give the text, you give the audio recording, and let the judge decide. And that's the same thing you're going to do for your lawyer. And look, if that's what's going on, your lawyer is going to figure it out. That's the story that's going to be told. And I just don't want you to sort of make your whole case harder on yourself.
I hear that. I think what's really hard, and because I hear lots of people talk about this, is that they don't know what to say because course of control, for example, is so extraordinarily subtle. And when you say things out loud, people will say, well, that doesn't really sound rough. Let me give you, for instance, when I was in that relationship and it was so stressful on me, I had a lot of inflammation and my knees would hurt. And he would want me to take my hand and help me out of the car, knowing my knees hurt and that I really actually couldn't lift from my knees. And he would do that over and over, destroying my knees. I had to actually tell him to stop that I could get myself out of the car. Now, somebody hearing that would say, oh, well, that sounds so sweet and generous. Yeah, but he knew that it was creating pain for me and he didn't care. So it's those types of things you end up saying, well, how do I explain to somebody this person's controlling what we eat, when we eat, that they're not letting me carry in the groceries, they're kind of taking away my autonomy, they're robbing me of all this freedom in all these areas to where I can't breathe and I have no privacy and I don't feel safe in my own house anymore. I don't feel safe to be myself. That's the stuff that gets really, really hard to explain.
My question would be, Dr. Kerry, why explain it at all?
Well, that's a good point.
Here's what I mean. I think that people often come to divorce wanting justice.
I do too.
I had a client a long time ago, a client's relative or something, say to me, honey, the last place you go for justice is the courthouse steps. Now, that's a pretty cynical approach. But the justice you want, the vindication, the sympathy, all the things you want, ladies, and guys, I guess, if they're listening, you're not going to be satisfied with how it goes at court. The court system is not designed for you to be heard. The court system is not designed to be therapeutic. And in fact, the opposite often plays out. Remember, you're in an institution. The institution's job is fundamentally to sever a contractual relationship that you and the other party have with the state. And severing contracts has consequences. And those consequences involve your money and your assets. And for sure in Texas and in other states, the state has a business of not letting like land sit idle. You know, our states want us to develop and move land. So they've got to make sure that land gets handled. And that's like, if you get to the root of what's actually happening up there, it helps make sense of it. And don't expect it to be what it isn't. Don't expect the banana to be an F-150. That's not the job of the banana, is not to be an F-150 pickup. Now, the other thing is the court system is designed to be as efficient as possible so that it can dispose of as many issues as possible. It is not efficient to prove that someone is a narcissist. It is hard and it is nuanced, and you have to be dealing with people who understand why this matters. But what I'd say is, and so many people like, that's the thing, they go into their lawyers and like, I got to tell you every bad thing you ever did. Okay. It's not that I don't care as a human being and like as your friend as a glass of wine. And it's not that I don't even care in my job as a lawyer, but you're going to be paying me a decent bit of money per hour to tell me this. And I'm going to say, okay, like in Texas is where I live, so I can speak to that law. Being a narcissist does not make him have to pay you more money. I mean, there might be some level of abuse that could get a disproportionate share of the estate, more money. Like there, but usually courts, remember, you're talking about he held my hand to get me out of the car and my knees hurt. The case before you was like, he took a baseball bat to my kid's knees. Okay. And they're like, And they're a human and they have heuristics, and all day long they're hearing this stuff. And maybe they got in a fight with their spouse this morning, and maybe they're hungry for lunch and whatever else is going on. So probably the really bad news, that can also be good news if you'll let it, is that the narcissistic things that your spouse does may never see the light of day. And the good news about that is, if you know it, you can just not spend all your time and energy and start focusing that energy instead of proving what a bad person this is. Start building forward to your next chapter where you don't give two craps what kind of person they are, whatever. Now, when you have kids, obviously that complicates things. If it's just a divorce, whether or not they're the worst narcissist and they do all these things, it's probably just not all that relevant. If you were doing that with me and the knee thing and objection, Your Honor, relevance, Dr. Kerry's knees to whether or not they should split the cost of the house.
I filed my own in another state and I handled it myself. And I stuck to the practical stuff. I remember he even flew in and said to me, I want more. And I said, we have nothing. We weren't living in the United States. We have nothing in the United States. There's no accounts. There's no property. You and I have nothing shared here. So what is it you're looking to split? Because there is nothing to split.
Yep.
I said, you just need to sign the papers.
Yeah.
And he signed the paper.
Good. Well, it's more complicated, obviously, when there's kids, and I can hear people screaming at me, but it's different because there's kids. Okay. The other thing, the court, remember what it's trying to do, disposing of land and all that. Their job, like really probably most judges would see in family law, their number one responsibility is to protect the best interest of the kids in front of them. And what you've got to show is that there is some nexus, some connection between the activity and the children that's like harming them. So him being a punk to you, Dr. Kerry, the judge might say, well, that's called a real good reason to get divorced. It comes up with financial stupidity all the time. Well, he was gambling. He was spending money on hookers. He was whatever. Okay. Yeah. Those are called real good reasons to get divorced. Well, he's the one who took out all this credit card. Yep. Good reason to get divorced. Not a reason to like lose custody or whatever. Because does the abuse apply to the children? Now, a good lawyer, if you've got a bunch of money to spend on a legal case and that's how you want to spend a few years of your life, could show that the actions and behaviors that he's doing to you, he could do to the kids, and there's this history. That stuff is just hard to prove, y'all.
The part that's so wild, and I do understand this, so you are preaching to the choir,
Mm-hmm.
but the hard part because I worked with children, and I was sometimes an expert test witness in some custody cases. The tough part, though, is that there is a connection. People aren't abusive to one person and not abusive to others, particularly in the home.
Right.
Yeah, maybe in the public, he's nice to the neighbors or she's wonderful to PTA, but it doesn't mean that makes her a good mom at home or him a fantastic father at home. And often these individuals who are fighting for custody is really about hurting their partner or wanting to not have to pay child support. They're looking to avoid losing money. And the parties know that. And that's what's really tough about this is both back to, as you said it in the start, we're not going to get justice. But the game playing that occurred in these relationships continue almost in a worse way outside and post-separation abuse. That there's a continuation of further abuse, and then they use the court system as a way to do that. Mm-hmm. And here's the other part that I get very disturbed about. Abusive individuals are in control, and they already have a narrative created, and they in their minds have created a pretty solid way in which framing it that makes them look like it's true. The victims come in dysregulated. Their narrative is what's happened. And they're just trying to get people to listen, but their memory is not working the same because they're the one with the trauma. Mm-hmm. And so they don't present well. They present anxious, chaotic, dysregulated, dramatic, like they're wasting time. And I understand that because I work with them all the time. I see this presentation. The problem is that they don't present well legally.
Yeah.
And then it often goes in a direction because they don't, first of all, they're not approaching this in the same way that the abusive person is. Yeah. It's not a game to them. This is to them, their children, their life, their heart. And they just feel like it's another way in which they get into these situations and they don't get good representation because nobody likes them. Which brings me into another question that I don't want to forget. But so don't let me forget that I would love to talk about there's a bias of who has it better in court. Men claim that women now have it better in court. Women claim men still have it better in court. I think victims don't have it well in court. I think victims lose, regardless of the sex. But anyways, that's my issue, is that there is a connection. I think it's really wild how the courts split. Parents are different with their children than they are with their partners. No, they're not. It's just, not a dysfunctional person is dysfunctional.
Well, and here's what's like, I always like to get to the root of things. So a legal underpinning, what's happening is, and it's not excuses. It just helps me if I understand. So when you're talking about a parent's relationship with their child, you're talking about a constitutional right. And when we mess with constitutional rights, we have stricter levels of sort of scrutiny. So for them to deny a parent the ability to parent, they're denying someone of a constitutional right. So the standard is just higher. It's just tougher. Then you two are going to get divorced. You're right. Y'all should stay away from each other. Thank you. Bye-bye. Right? But when it comes to kids, that person, shitty as they may be, has a constitutional right to be a parent unless there's something called a fit parent presumption. And this is played out in different states in different ways. Like constitutional law is like big picture. Some of it has been in the Supreme Court, like with different kinds of cases over the years. All right. And if you understand that, if you kind of know going in, the likelihood, at least in Texas, and different states are different. California's different. Oregon's different. Like the way it's going to work, Florida, everywhere. But if you go in understanding the likelihood of a court cutting off a parent's constitutional right to be a parent to their child is pretty small. You're going to have to show some pretty big stuff. And then you're going to have to show that stuff's likely to repeat. And then you're going to have to show after they've had 1 million chances, they won't behave. More than likely. Just know that up front. I think that women in these situations, and I'm saying women, I mean, I just don't know that many men are victims of it who haven't talked to me. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Maybe they're just less likely to talk about it.
I do know of men. I mean, I know I can right off the top of my head think of several. So I do know that it happens, but you're right. It's more common. Women are more likely to talk about it. I don't know that means there's more likely to happen to women. I have more contact with more women.
Yeah, so. Same. So any guys listening, like I'm talking about y'all too. I just don't have as much personal experience. But what I would tell them is accept what is. Resistance is the pain. This is what it is. You're right, mom, person being abused. You're not playing the game. They're playing a game. They're setting up traps. They're setting up narratives. Here's the thing. You're involved in a game too, whether you like it or not. You are involved in a game. You are involved in a chess match. Even if you don't want to think about it that way, that is convenient for you not to. And to say, oh, all I care about is loving my kids, whatever. You do not have the pleasure of just saying all I care about is my kids and then doing crazy shit. And being all over the place and being chaotic and not taking care of yourself and not getting healed and not getting regulated and not finding your own inner calm. Look, it's the best and worst news that could possibly exist in the world. Our lives are 100% our own personal responsibility. Those of us who've been in these abusive situations, look, I talked about my divorce very differently in the beginning than I do now. Ultimately, I stayed in that marriage. Ultimately, I co-created that reality, okay? And so for me, it's like, so what are we going to do about it? Okay, so you're getting divorced from this narcissist person, and they set up all these games, and blah, 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 and they always make it about the kids, and they're willing to harm the kids to get to me, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Stipulated, Your Honor, stipulated, agreed. Okay, so now what? You don't have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines and sort of being like, I'm only in it for the kids. I'm not playing the game. You're playing the game. You're just losing at it. And so there's techniques and strategies that you can do that are not playing the game in a sense of you're not trying to be manipulative. It's really just a steady strategy to withstand the pressure, but it calls for gumption. It calls for strength. It calls for wisdom and maturity. And you've probably been in a situation for a long time where those are not necessarily characteristics you've fully developed and owned right now because you've just been trying to survive for a long time. And you finally got the strength to leave. And you're at the end of your rope. If you're anything like me when I was getting divorced, it took everything I had to make the divorce decision, like to get there. I thought I was at the finish line and I was just getting started. And here's the thing. I was in a game even though I didn't know it. And I lost. My kids did not live with me primarily at first when I got divorced. And I made a deal because I knew that I'd be beat at court. Because if you looked at my life under a microscope and you listened to what he said about me and the spin and all of this, then you would have been like, sorry, it sounds like, being a lawyer is your priority and you don't really care about your kids that much, like he says. Well, I paid hard. I continue to pay. My children continue to pay the price for the fact that I was like, ooh, booga booga. Like, what? You want to have the kids and you want to make it so that I never even existed to them or whatever. Like, I sort of was like, oh no, like, I don't know, damselly about the whole thing a little bit and not prepared and did not have a strategy or anything. So like, I'm only saying this is like, do as I say, not as I did. When I came back into custody modification and flipped custody, it was very different. I was prepared. I had a strategy. I'd done the healing. I had some different support. I had access to more resources. I had my gumption. I had my shit together. The first time I didn't. And I think the issue is a lot of women stick in that not having their shit together, pointing the finger and a lot of blame. And the problem is you're just feeding into that narrative.
Yeah, it's hard because what happens in these relationships is it's psychologically identity shattering. Mm-hmm. And the longer that you're in a trauma bond, the longer that you're essentially being brainwashed. I mean, they've actually shown in psychology that there's a brainwashing, it's a cult of two. The longer that you're in it, the more that the learned helplessness is growing and the more that you learn to submit. And also there's strong penalties. And here's my pushback. It's not that I'm saying you're not right. I know that you're correct, that you are in it, whether you want to be in it or not. And they're going to win if you don't learn how to start to step into that narrative and see it what it is. This is not the place to get justice. It's not the place to deal with your anger because that's not what's going to happen here. It's not like it's truth. She's weighing the truth and you're going to finally walk out and say, finally, my truth is verified. No, you're not going to get that. But what this is simply a separation of property and a decision around what's best for the kids' care. But what you're asking people who have been victimized to do is something extraordinarily hard on the heels of coming out of abuse. I think that's what we don't remember. These are still highly traumatized people that back in the day, when I first started practicing in the 1980s, a lot of them would have been hospitalized.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think we realize that today, we've stripped the mental health care to such a pitiful pittance of what it used to be, is that we went from the maximum level of care for someone experienced trauma to basically no support at all, to where a lot of them are paying out of pocket for coaches because that's all they can afford. And we're now asking them to move into another combative realm where they've already been beaten up so many times to learn that conflict equals retaliation and vengeance and grudge holding. And then there's situations where this person can say over and over, he's a threat, he's a threat, he's a threat. And then it comes to fruition. I'm thinking of the case in California where the supervisor and all the kids were shot because nobody listened to the fact that this person kept saying, he's a threat, he's a threat. Yes, you're right. This is the way it works. Unfortunately, this is the way it works. But it's also really broken. And that's the part that I feel concerned about. So here's what I think that could help, that maybe you could help the people that I know that we're talking to today with this. How can they come in and utilize your strength, their attorney's strength, better? Because I think that's the way to work this. Is I wouldn't say to a victim, get over the trauma. You need to go in there and be better of advocate, but hire the right person to be the right advocate that can say, listen, I know this happens. I see the 40 pages of documentation of all the ways this person's abusing you, which is a lot to reference. Can you organize them in the maybe 10 categories of violations? And then I can then go in and go to bat for you to say, yes, this is a person who pushes boundaries and doesn't accept anything that we're saying. Yeah. So how can they work better with an attorney?
Yeah. And I mean, just to say one thing too, I have so much compassion for people who are in that spot. I'm not trying to say it's easy. There's no judgment here. Like, I was there and I didn't do it right. My kids, they didn't come with me. I paid child support. So I'm your ghost of Christmas future to warn you against the mistakes that I made. But we are moms, we are women, we can do hard things. And if you're not in a place to be able to do that, I mean, what I would tell people, like, up front is the prep work. Prep is everything. Measure twice, cut once, right? It's starting before you file. Listening to Dr. Kerry, you've never lived in a time that information is more readily available to you to change your life, to change your mindset, to get the help, to get the support. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that what I'm asking you to do isn't a monumental feat. And if you want to walk out that door with your kids, you're going to have to find a way to climb Mount Everest. And you can do, I know that you can do it. You can listen to Dr. Kerry. You can get in there and get help and support. When working with your lawyer, look, I think in keeping, in everything in dealing in a narcissist situation, Biff, keep your communication brief, informative, friendly, firm.
Yeah.
Brief, informative, friendly, and firm.
I wish you'd made that civil, but I know it doesn't fit the F very well.
Yeah.
Because friendly to me, we're not friends.
I usually say factual. I looked it up to make sure because I always get it kind of confused.
Yeah, it's friendly, but I think it should be, I know it breaks the acronym, but I would love like civil, hospitable. Yeah, exactly.
We can patent Dr. Kerry another way of doing it. But I think with your lawyer, it's very similar. And I'm going to caution you against expecting your lawyer to act as a coach or a therapist. Their job is to take evidence and put together a case and guide you through the process on the legal. They can't be all things to all people. We weren't trained like Dr. Kerry, right? Now, finding a lawyer who can be sensitive to what's going on and who's worked in cases like that would be the best thing to do. But keep the main thing is what I always say. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, there's an AI that's being developed right now specifically for narcissistic abuse.
Yeah, I've seen. I don't remember what it's called. I've seen.
Amy says.
Yep.
So I got to talk to one of the people instrumental in Amy Says, and she says it won't be long, and you could submit your 40-page document, and it will create a one-page case of this is the violations.
Good.
It will synthesize it down to, because often I wouldn't know what to say. I don't know how to define. Okay, so I ask him to show up on Sundays at 4. He shows up Sundays at 6 consistently, and then blames me for not having the kids ready after we gave up 2 hours ago. So, but it will be able to put it into legal speak that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's right. Streamlining it, keeping it focused on the main things, and also being realistic of what's your budget.
Yeah.
Hiring lawyers costs money. Proving a whole bunch of narcissist stuff is going to cost a fortune. It's going to take experts. A lawyer can do it with some texts and things. If you're really going down that path, they're going to need a Dr. Kerry to come testify about what makes a narcissist. And here's these things. And have you reviewed the file and maybe psychological evaluations and assessments? And y'all, I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars, if not 100,000. And I'm assuming everybody listening to this podcast does not have $100,000 to pay lawyers. And AI is helping change that and helping flatten the delivery of legal costs. And I'm all about all of that, but for right where you find us in this exact moment, keeping a focus on the main thing within the context of what you can kind of afford. And I mean in terms of dollars, but I also mean in terms of your emotions and your resources. And finding a lawyer who will tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. Finding someone that you tell them up front, I want you to be honest with me. I don't want you to necessarily feed into a narrative just to sort of make me happy. I want you to be straight with me about whether the evidence I have or we collect will support the case that you need to make. And if not, shoot straight with me so we can cut it out and not spend. I see people do this. They'll spend $50,000 trying to prove these tiny little baby points. And look, get a lawyer who'll say to you, we are not doing that. No, It will harm you. So I think that using the BIF method with everybody, including your lawyers, is a good idea. Bulking the information, like when you have questions and meetings, always come in prepared. Maybe even making it. This is just generally working with the lawyer, right? Have an agenda of the things you want to discuss. Do some work yourself if you can. So if I was going to go to a lawyer and I wanted to talk about the strategy for proving at a temporary hearing that this person is a narcissist and it will harm my children and therefore he should have to go to some kind of mandated counseling. Well, I would probably create an agenda and be like, here's a section of potential evidence. And here is a a click to a Google Drive that has perhaps, 7 pieces, something less than 20 pieces of evidence that I think demonstrate the case. Help them help you. And people want to be like, well, you're not doing it. Well, okay. Your lawyer has meetings all day, all the time. And you've sent them 1,000 documents. And some of which are he's arguing with you about, you have this soccer cleats really. You're see? That's probably not coming up into your 2-hour hearing who had the soccer cleats on that day. I'm not saying it can't, but help them help you. Help yourself save costs and be realistic and it's frustrating and it's not fair. And you will say things like, he or she gets away with everything. They never have to pay. And like my best piece of advice and the silver lining in all of this is, if you develop things like using Biff, gray rock method, those sorts of tactics over time, it can make a huge difference in yours and your kids' lives. I know, because those are the things that I've done for now 10 years. And when you're in the thick of it, when you're in the throes of it, when it's just beginning, it feels like it will never end. It will never be over. And it does get better. And you can get better at it. You can get really strong muscles and skills. And it feels good because every time they do something and you react, you've given your power away to that person.
Yeah.
Versus, it's not to say it doesn't get me annoyed and like, want to murder for a second. But more often than not, it doesn't. Like, okie dokie, how do I need to solve this problem and work around this situation? Like I'm water and I've met a stone in the stream.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. This is a lot of really, really useful information. How can people find out more about you if they'd like to listen to your podcast or anything else that you're doing? Find out about the community that you got going. Where should they go to learn about those things?
Yeah, it's hard to swing a stick on the internet and not bump into me somewhere. So like the podcast that just launched is Not Saving It for Later. You can go to notsavingitforlater.com to make sure you get notifications when it launches, and it's on all the podcasts, Apple, Spotify, If they'd like to join the circle and get access to our free divorce prep course to help prepare for divorce without losing their kids, money, and sanity, called My Confident Divorce, you can just go to myconfidentdivorce.com, and it's free for members in the circle. My name, Hannah Hembree Bell, is my handle on all the socials, and you can follow me there. And I post real talk, real advice for people who are in the middle of this. And I'd love to connect and keep the conversation going.
That would be awesome. And let's jump over to the podcast extra and talk about it. Who is their court biased and in what direction? Against men or against women?
Ooh, okay. See you there.
All right. Thank you so much for today. It was really a pleasure having you on, Hannah. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's 2 a.m. again, and you're replaying that whole conversation over, and you're wondering yourself, was it really that bad? Or maybe I'm just being dramatic. So you start to draft that I'm sorry text again because the guilt that you're feeling or the confusion you're experiencing is just unbearable. And you know this loop because you've been there before, but I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I'm a retired psychologist, and for 25 years, I've been helping people untangle exactly what toxic relationships do to your mind, how they create the confusion, the self-doubt, and that trauma bond that keeps pulling you back in. Here's the truth. Recovery isn't about getting more information. It's about having the right support in the exact moment you need it. That's why I've created Reclaim You. It's a private, always available coaching app built from my work and my content, organized into an extensive library that you can actually use when you're triggered. Inside it, you'll get 5-minute lessons when your brain can't handle a deep dive, check-ins that meet you exactly where you are, whether you're feeling strong, shattered, or numb, boundary scripts that help you say no without over-explaining, grounding tools that work fast when you're activated, and progress tracking so you can see proof you're healing even on days when it feels like you're not. There's no appointments, no waiting, no judgment, just practical support right when you need it. Reclaim You, real help in real time, right in your pocket. And it's a coaching support, not therapy or emergency care. Learn more at studio.com/Dr. Kerry. So start your healing today and reclaim you.